How many times have you made a decision and you wish you could have taken it back? Or you responded to an email and you click send before you had some time to think about it. All of those things are based on our emotions. And as an emotional leader, I'm going to give you some tips and tricks to make sure that you don't click send too early. Stick with us. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. Welcome everybody. I am your host, John Espinosa. Welcome everybody to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. Hey everyone, John here. Welcome to the Leaders Leading Leaders podcast. So as you can tell by that introduction, today I'm going to discuss those clicks or the decisions that we make that are fueled by our emotions. And it doesn't matter what leadership style you are, how long you've been a leader, who you're leading. As human beings, we have emotions, whether we like to admit it or not. And sometimes we let those emotions drive the decisions that we make or the choices that we give people. And that's not always the right way to do it. So today in this episode, we're going to go over 3 things that I use myself, and I would encourage you all out there to use as well next time you're faced with a decision that is emotionally charged. So before we get going, I want to welcome all the new listeners out there. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for giving just a little bit of your time. Welcome to the Go Be Great community. For those continued listeners out there, thank you. Thank you very much for continuing to show up, continuing to click on that thumbnail, giving us thumbs up, writing in comments, questions. Keep them coming. I continue to read them. This exact podcast, this episode right here, came out of a listener question, how to deal with emotionally charged decisions. First off, I want to start by saying, just because you identify as an emotional leader doesn't mean that you are a bad leader. So let's get that out there. I would consider myself an emotional leader. I wear my emotions on my sleeves. I don't have a good poker face. So when I recognize, and we're going to talk about the 3 things as you go through, recognize as one of them that you're beginning to make a decision out of emotion or from emotion, that's when we hit the timeout button. That's when we pause and we consider. So we're going to talk about all of that. So I hope today's episode leaves you with some takeaways. If you are an emotional leader, or maybe if you are in a situation in the future where something doesn't go like you planned, or it was the opposite, or maybe it goes against one of your values, core beliefs. How do you handle that? Well, hopefully this will be some tips and tricks around the next time that you're faced with that situation. You'll be better equipped. You'll be better equipped to not necessarily make the right decision, but make a decision from a more logical, less emotional standpoint. So let's get into the topic for today. And as I was journaling, I thought about this from a very wide spectrum. It doesn't have to be from a leader leading a team. This could be from a dad or a mom or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, that our kids ask us something, our children ask us something, or a family member comes to us from advice, and we have our core belief around that. Or maybe it's just something that we want to keep them safe. And so we make a decision based or from that emotional viewpoint. And that's not always the correct way. Or even if you are a small business owner and you may not even have a team, and you're faced with a difficult decision where the choice that you make will impact your business. So we'll discuss how you recognize you have to accept and then you have to act on that. And hopefully the decision that you'll make, you can at least be at peace with and you won't regret later on down the road. Leading with emotions, let's just get a baseline. And this is where I was coming from whenever I was putting together this podcast. So using feelings, intuition, or a passion to make decisions. So it's feelings, your intuition, your gut, that's what I call gut, is intuition, and your passion around a specific topic, around a specific subject to make a decision. Has anybody made a decision that they're very passionate about and then later on realized it may not have been the right decision for the collective team or for your business or for your family? I did it this morning. Woke up, probably wasn't in the best mood to be asked a question, hadn't gotten around, was busy doing something and was interrupted, got asked a question, and I gave a snarky remark back, a snarky answer. Probably shouldn't have done that. Probably should have just waited to, hey, give me about 5 minutes and then I'll be able to listen to you and give you my full attention. Instead, what happened? My son kept on asking. I became frustrated and I made an emotional decision that he wasn't going to be allowed to do what he wanted to do. And then that created other ripples within the relationship. So it can happen pretty quick. It can happen very easily, and a lot of times it happens whenever we least expect it. So the first one really ties into the fact that even when we least expect it, giving ourselves 24 hours. Now, the time is not as important as the pause. So the time, the number of hours, number of minutes, number of seconds is not as important as just not making the decision in that moment, giving yourself some breathing room. I call it 24 hours because there's a lot that can go on in between those 24 hours that will bring new insight to how you can make a decision better from a logical standpoint, or at least think through what you are deciding on or what options that you're giving. So take a pause. If I'm compiling an email, if I get an email or a text and I'm listening or I read it and I read into it, there's always the context of a text message, and whether you're in a good place, whether you're in an open mindset, or maybe something just happened to you and you're in a negative mindset and you read that same text, you can read into that text a couple different ways. So if you do have a text, one of those that are heated or one of those that you are reading into, maybe that individual being angry or they are being condescending, whatever it is, give yourself a pause, take 24 hours, sit with that text, email, voice message, whatever it may be, and then come up with a way to respond. I like to journal. I like to look at the text or the message and really, dissect it. Well, what are they really saying here? Am I reading into this? And then one of my favorite things to do, ask for clarification. Help me understand whatever you sent. Right? Help me understand or give me some context behind this. Where is this coming from? Again, it may be coming out of left center, but there may be 3 or 4 different events that have led up to this message that you're receiving or this question that you're being asked. So sit with it and then let that person know. I think it's important. Hey, give me 24 hours, or like my example earlier, just give me 5 minutes. I'll be done with this task and then I'll be able to give you my undivided attention. But let the individual know that's asking the question or whatever message that has been sent that you will get back to them in X number of time, minutes, seconds, whatever that looks like. So give yourself a pause, and this will create a response and not a reaction. And that's the goal of that pause, is you're responding to the message rather than what's your first reaction to that message, where you might not be in the right spot, or you're reading into the message, or the person that is sending the message, they may have had a bad day. Everybody's allowed a bad day every once in a while. The second one that I really like to focus on whenever I'm in a situation and I feel as if I'm making an emotional decision, what can I control now? There are a lot of things that go on a day-to-day basis, whether it's financial, getting the resources that we need to be successful, and leading our teams. People are people, and they're going to behave in people ways. They're not robots. They're not going to take emotion out of things. They're not going to continue to do or behave the way that a robot would. They're people. Maybe they got a flat tire on the way this morning. That would put me in a bad mood. Maybe there's something going on at home and you notice a change with them in the work environment. There are a million things that could be going on, but can we control that? Can we control the way somebody else is behaving? Some may argue to a point. The better question would be, can we control the way that we react to how that person is behaving? That's what you can control now. You can control your reaction to the message or the behavior or whatever is going on. That's what you can control. I can control myself. So the question to ask yourself is, what can you control now? If it's a resource challenge or a resource issue, and this has been maybe something that has been continued, we don't have enough money to get what you need. We don't have enough people to grow the business that you are trying to grow. We don't have enough of whatever it is out there to get to where we think we need to go. So it gets frustrating, especially if it continues and continues and continues to happen. And it just takes that one time for that message that we get that, nope, you can't do that. Now you're firing off that email, you're firing off that text message on your phone, all caps. Whatever that message may look like, it's probably not the one that you need to send at that time. So what can you control? I can control the way that I respond. I can't control the money. I can't control the resource strains. I can't control whatever it is, the external factors that are out there. You have to figure out what you can control. Does that completely take the emotion out of the situation? Probably not. We're emotional beings, so there's still going to be emotion present. However, if we focus on what we can control now, we activate that other part of our brain, the logical piece, because now we're focusing on the present and not all the different possibilities that could happen, prior and future. So focus on the now. And last but not least, if you don't want to be labeled as that hot-headed leader who reacts with emotion, or that mom or dad who's in the bad mood and maybe barks at your son, daughter when they ask a simple question and things get blown out of proportion. Or maybe it's that person out there who beats themselves up, who degrades themselves because things aren't going the way that they planned. That internal voice, that inner voice that begins to speak up and get louder when things don't start going our way and it seems like everything is snowballing and nothing's going right. I can't catch a break. And we begin to make decisions emotionally that are emotionally charged. So the third one has to do with increasing our EQ, our emotional intelligence. Hands down, one of the better things that I have done throughout my leadership journey is work to increase my EQ, my emotional intelligence. So you may ask, what are some ways that I can increase my EQ? I'm sure many people have heard about the term EQ. I talk about it on the previous podcast around not having to be the person in the room with all the answers, transitioning from that IQ to EQ as a leader. But if I had to describe EQ, it would come down to three things. You have to recognize your emotions, the emotions that you are having, the situation, externalize yourself, take that pause as we talked about earlier. Then you have to accept the fact that you may not be able to control some of the things that are presently in that situation, that challenge that you're going through, or the decision that you have to make. And last but not least, you have to act on that. It's not just good enough to recognize and accept the fact for what it is if you don't change anything. And the whole point behind not being reactive and being more responsive has to do with the way that you implement the fact that you are going to respond to that challenge, that question, that inner voice differently. So I know that there's some leaders out there that are still like, John, I'm not with you. I do a great job of responding without emotion. Well, there's some leaders out there that will go the opposite and just take emotion out of everything. All decisions, all things. But then what happens? People see that. People see the fact that you're not acting on emotions. You're acting more like a robot. So when you do make decisions, you don't take people into account. If you got to make cuts, guess what? You're cut. So there's a fine balance between leading logically and leading emotionally. And I say there's a balance because that's really truly what it is. Hopefully the three things that we talked about, give yourself some time, pause. I take 24 hours to respond. Ask yourself, what can I control now? And then last but not least, work to increase your emotional intelligence. And that is going to go a long way with responding versus reacting to the situations that are going to come, because it's not a matter of if, it's when. So leaders out there, I know you can do it. I have faith in you and I believe in you. Go be great. If you like this episode, give me a thumbs up. Let me know. I'll do more of these. Again, this leadership hack season, I am absolutely loving everything that we're doing. Keep the questions coming. You never know when I'm going to answer them on one of these episodes. Thank you all. Have a good day. Bye. If you like what you're hearing, do us a favor, click on that subscribe button. give us a thumbs up or leave a comment. That lets us know that what we are putting out benefits you. If you want additional information or resources or learn how to work with me, head on over to thejohnespinosa.com, because when we become better versions of ourselves, it helps us get others to where they're going. Go be great. Talk to everyone later.